Welcome to this course titled No Opt-Out, as designed and produced by the Education Service Center for Region 11. In this course, you'll learn to turn, into success by ensuring that students who won't try or can't answer practice getting it right. For this presentation, you'll need a copy of Teach Like a Champion 2.0 as we read Chapter 3, Setting High Academic Expectations, which starts on page 89. At the conclusion of this course, you'll have an opportunity to demonstrate your understanding of the stated learning objective by participating in a demonstration lab that's sponsored by Region 11 Certification Team. During the demonstration lab, you'll present a 10-minute mini lesson in which you model holding participants accountable for answering correctly using the no opt-out lever. You'll receive feedback based on the proficiency rubric you see on the screen. To earn credit for this course, participants must score at the proficient or master's level. Pause the video to review the proficiency rubric shown on this slide. We're just about ready to get started, so grab some refreshments, a copy of the resources, some highlighters, and let's begin. I don't know. If you think about it, these three little words can save students a lot of hard work. If we allow students to opt out of answering, we're implicitly giving them permission to disengage from learning. No opt-out can ensure that all students, especially reluctant ones, take responsibility for learning. No opt-out also helps students who generally don't know the answer because it rehearses success. So the first thing to understand about no opt-out is that it's based on assessing student understanding. When students raise their hand, they're signaling to you that they know the answer. Great. However, the purpose of asking a question is to gather data about what your students know and understand about the content in order to clarify and refine ideas and prevent misconceptions. If you only ask students whose hands are raised, you may get the false impression that all your students are doing well, when the reality is that many are lost or tuned out. In typical classes, when students don't know an answer or don't want to try, they quickly learn the teacher will leave them alone if they respond to a question with, "I don't know," or shrugging their shoulders. The teacher then moves to another student. Instead, no opt-out is a useful tool to get all students to the right answer as often as possible, even if only to repeat the correct answer. Pause the video now and read pages 89 to 92 in Teach Like a Champion 2.0. Pause for a moment to read the teacher-student scenario on the screen. The first basic format for no opt-out is for you to provide the answer, then have the student repeat the answer. Notice that the question is stated first, then the student is called on. Always give sufficient wait time for students to process the question and think about a response. ESL students need time to translate and then process. During wait time, it is acceptable to repeat the question. The second basic format is an extension of the first one. Another student provides the answer, then the initial student repeats the answer. Pause for a moment to read this possible classroom scenario. The third basic format asks you to provide a cue, then the student uses the cue to find the answer. Pause for a moment to read the teacher-student scenario on the screen. The last basic format is an extension of the third one. Another student provides a hint or cue, then the initial student uses the cue to find the answer. Pause for a moment to read this possible classroom scenario. We want to give students a prompt that offers useful information in a way that pushes or leads them to a thinking process. We must be mindful of asking specifically for what will be helpful. Pause a moment to read the examples on your screen. An alternative to cueing is to allow students to ask questions that clarify or give you information about the type of help they need. The sequence of the technique still ends with the student answering the question. At this time, please pause the video and turn to page 93 in Teach Like a Champion 2.0. Then, see it in action. Watch the video clip by clicking on the pop-up on the screen, and as you watch the clip, be thinking about the tone and manner by which the teacher, David, responds to the student who's trying to opt out. David responds with a warm and humorous tone, but he's persistent in his goal to get the student to participate in the learning. His manner and tone allow her to enter safely into the community of learners. No opt-out creates a culture of learning and community that lays the foundation of high expectations. It's not about making students answer, it's about giving them opportunities to be successful and contribute to the learning community. This foundation is how you'll prepare students to engage in meaningful discourse as the year progresses. Quit taking it personally, or don't take it personally, when a student tries to opt out of answering. Keep your tone pleasant and empathetic. Resist the urge to admonish the student for not listening or not paying attention. Remember, the goal is to provide conditions in which the students feel safe and are part of a community of learners. The tone in most classrooms that use no opt-out is positive and academic, and using it only reinforces a teacher's belief in students' ability to get the right answer. There could be many reasons a student may seem reluctant to answer. The student may be shy or afraid to speak in front of a large group, so it's important to approach each situation with emotional constancy. Instead of responding by chastising the student, you may say something like, "Maria, I know you can do this." Who could give Maria an example to help her? Learning doesn't occur without mistakes. The process of learning is, when we make mistakes, take in new ideas, then we reform our thinking. Normalize errors. Instead of saying, "Wrong," say, "You made a mistake that's very common. I think it'll help everyone to know how to fix this. Who can help identify the error?" Pause the video now and read pages 108 to 116 to find out how to build on and extend a student's thinking. Stop before the title, "Want more?" It's not just what students say when they respond that matters, but how they say it. If we want our students to be prepared for college, we need to make sure they respond in complete sentences, answer in a loud enough voice, and use correct grammar. For inaudible answers, you could simply and swiftly say, "Voice," to remind them to speak up. Pause for a moment to read the teacher-student interaction on the screen. In this example, Lila responded in a complete sentence, but didn't give an explanation or justification as to how she arrived at her conclusion. Probing with the question, "How do you know?" can extend her response and possibly clarify the thinking of other students. It is important to probe your students' thinking beyond a simple response. It's not until you can make their thinking visible that you could truly know if the student understands the content. Pause for a moment to read the revised teacher-student scenario. This time, the teacher uses "say more" to get a more elaborated response, and then follows up with "how do you know?" to get a clear explanation from Lila. By extending Lila's response, the teacher gets a picture of Lila's thinking and the depth of her understanding. If Lila's response is unclear or faulty, then the teacher can clarify and confront any misconceptions in the moment. It's time for a formative assessment. Think about each of the following questions on your own, then click on the next slide to see a list of answer choices. First, think, why should you implement the no opt-out technique in your classroom? Select the answer or answers you think best complete the statement. Right. You use the no opt-out technique in order to hold students accountable for learning and to give them opportunities to experience success. Alright, think. What actions can be utilized to make sure students don't opt out of learning? Select the best answer out of the choices here. One possible action is to ask the student again after he or she has been given a cue by the teacher. Of course, we must use wait time, but it's the act of returning to the student to get the correct response that's the key to the no opt-out technique. Now that we've gone over the basics, let's dive a little deeper into implementing the no opt-out technique to get the most leverage. The challenge for teachers is to balance using no opt-out against the need to keep momentum going. You can do this by focusing the no opt-out technique most on the questions closest to the lesson's main learning objective. To help students be better prepared to answer individual questions, it's helpful to prime the pump by checking the understanding of all your students and giving them an opportunity to turn and talk or discuss the content with a partner or small group. If the purpose of questioning is to gather data about what your students know and are able to do, well, then you'll need data from all students so you can see where there's a need to clarify and refine student understanding. Allowing students to discuss the questions and look for evidence in small groups better prepares them to answer questions. Checking for understanding may look like this. We've been learning about adjectives today. In a minute, when I say go, I want everyone to write an adjective that describes this spider on your dry erase board. When you finish, hold up your board so I can see. Think about it. Go. Supporting them with discussion may look like this. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to say share, and your partner and you will have 15 seconds to share your adjective and tell why you chose it. The person wearing the most green will start. Ready, share. Now that you've primed the pump or made your students' thinking visible, you have the data to form questions that will confront the misconceptions you've uncovered. Let's refer back to the spider scenario. We can now ask a higher level question such as, how do adjectives deepen the reader's understanding of the ideas? Now, if you get an I don't know response, you'll have a healthy stream of ideas to draw from. You know from listening to their discussions who could give a cue, or you could draw on the student's own discussion to give a cue. Something like, I heard you tell Sophia the spider was meticulous. What does the word meticulous tell us about the spider? The most important takeaways from this session are, ask a question that supports the goals of the lesson. Call on students to gather data about what they know and understand, and if a student doesn't answer or is incorrect, take action to provide the answer or a cue. Return to the student to get a correct and complete response. Extend the learning by asking a why or how question. Now that you've learned the no opt-out technique, let's review the proficiency rubric one more time. During the demonstration lab, you'll present a 10-minute mini-lesson in which you model no opt-out. You'll receive feedback based on the proficiency rubric you see on the screen. To earn credit for this course, participants must score at the proficient or master's level. You'll receive feedback based on the proficiency rubric you see on the screen. To earn credit for this course, participants must score at the proficient or master's level. Here are some helpful tips as you prepare for your mini lesson. Spend up to the first 2 minutes introducing a new concept or skill by connecting the prior knowledge of your students. Engage your students in a task to practice or reflect on the new skill. Have them write, discuss, or solve a problem for a period of about 3 minutes. For more ideas, feel free to refer to page 324 of Teach Like a Champion or YouTube videos on whole brain teaching for ideas. While students are working, don't forget to set the timer and walk around the room to check for understanding. Pause for a few minutes to check for understanding. During this time, students might discuss what they're learning with a peer, write to reflect, or show what they know using a whiteboard or polling device. Be sure to ask probing questions that you can use with the no opt-out technique. Following that, you'll want to close a lesson. Closure is a time when you wrap up a lesson plan and help students organize the information in a meaningful context in their minds. Questions like, what was an important idea that came out of learning today? Or, what do you still have questions about? These are questions that keep the interaction of a lesson going. A strong closure can help students better retain the information beyond the immediate learning environment. Be sure to ask summarizing questions that you can use with the no opt-out technique. Thanks for watching this course module titled No Opt-Out. Good luck and feel free to review this video at any time as you prepare for your upcoming mini lesson. Today's material referenced the book Teach Like a Champion 2.0 by Doug Lemov and used downloaded images from Pixabay.